on the Scottish literature, rather than trying to build in the functionality into its Protect Scotland contract tracing app. So perhaps that's the way forward. Thank you for that. All right, the conversation must move on. Coming up after news, the poll from Bloomberg News that says a growing number of so-called Remainers in the United Kingdom are falling out of love with the EU as a result of those vaccines row. What of you, EU fan and proponent Sir Nick Clegg?
I think the EU has let itself down. Well, more importantly, has let millions of Europeans down by not providing people with vaccines on the scale and the speed that's been possible in the UK.
David Cameron to face an inquiry into Green Sill lobbying scandal. His former Downing Street Director of Communications serving under Sir John Major Jonathan Haslam.
I think it's quite remarkable that a former Prime Minister would have acted in the way that he has done. I think he's done his reputation a great deal of damage.
Those stories and more after the 8 o'clock news on LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Boris Johnson says the UK has passed another hugely significant milestone in the coronavirus vaccination programme. All adults over the age of 50 have now been offered their first dose, a few days ahead of the government's target. Invitations are expected to go out to people in their late 40s from this week. Speaking exclusively to LBC, the former Liberal Democrat leader and Deputy Prime Minister, Sir Nick Clegg, has criticised the European Union's rollout of the vaccine.
I think the EU has let itself down. Well, more importantly, has let millions of Europeans down by not providing people with vaccines on the scale and with the speed that has been possible in the UK and elsewhere, and that's elicited, quite understandably, a lot of anger. Where I'm now living in the US, UK, and Israel and other countries, vaccines are being rolled out much more rapidly. I hope they catch up.
The NHS has confirmed the Moderna COVID vaccine will begin to be given to patients in England this morning. The jab, which is the third to be approved in the UK, is already in use in Wales and Scotland. More than 40 confirmed cases of the South African variant of the disease have been identified in South London. The Department of Health says it will now carry out the largest surge testing operation to date in the Wandsworth and Lambeth boroughs. Professor of Virology Lawrence Young says we have to remain vigilant.
It's a sobering reminder, I think. The virus is still lurking, it's still out there. We've still got these issues about variants, and although we've got to the current situation with lower numbers of cases and hospitalisations and, thank goodness, lower death rates, because being in lockdown as well as vaccination. So as we're out and about a bit more, there will be more transmission.
Official figures show the UK economy rebounded slightly in February. GDP grew by 0.4% following the decline of 2.2% in January, but the economy is still almost 8% lower than before the pandemic. We're just hearing the defence giant Babcock International has said it expects to cut 1,000 jobs in the UK and overseas. It's announced an overhaul of the business and revealed write-downs of around £1.7 billion. West Bromwich Albion have won back-to-back games for the first time this season. They beat Southampton 3-0 last night after the 5-2 victory over Chelsea. The Baggies are now 8 points clear of the Premier League's relegation zone. Manager Sam Allardyce thinks it's unlikely they'll avoid the drop. In the city, the FTSE 100 is reopening at 68.89 after closing down 26 points yesterday. The pound buys $1.37 and €1.15. And today's weather, most parts dry with sunny spells and light winds. A few showers mainly for central and western areas. Feeling slightly warmer than recently, a high of 12 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
Now we're gradually coming out of lockdown. We can meet up outside in groups of up to 6 or 2 households. Have friends round for a drink in the garden. There you are, doing your bit, keeping a safe distance. When it starts to get dark, a little chilly, suddenly your lounge looks very warm and inviting. But don't forget, you're much safer in the fresh air, because COVID-19 particles are blown away. Let's take this next step safely. Remember, hands, face, space, and fresh air.
Britain's unemployed soars, she's concerned there could be more racial tension or even violence on the way in the next hour.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
I just want to stress that although you're more than welcome to start shouting at me, but before you start shouting at me, this is a poll done by Bloomberg news agency. We found that 2/3 of British voters believe that the independence now that has been gained from the Brexit has been the driving force behind the vaccinations. 1 in 5, this is the same poll, 1 in 5 pro-EU voters said they were now back quitting the bloc, according to a poll. 1 in 5, only 9% of those who voted leave would want to rejoin the European Union. Do those figures match with your views? The story says the change of heart follows widespread anger of the European Union in its efforts to prevent life-saving medical supplies from reaching Britain. In the meantime, the UK's successful COVID jabs rollout has helped the country bounce back from lockdown. If you look at those figures, very, very early indications coming in. Although it's nothing like as good as footfall as you'd expect in April from 2 years ago, of course it is vastly up on where we were. Money is starting to come back into the coffers. Now, if you're listening in the first hour, you'll know that I spoke with former Deputy Prime Minister, leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Nick Clegg, one of the big proponents of links with the European Union and a big Remain campaigner. I spoke to him in the previous hour with his recollections following the sad death of Shirley Baroness Williams, but I also asked him how his view on the UK and the EU has been coloured by the vaccine's row.
I think the EU has let itself down. Well, more importantly, has let millions of Europeans down by not providing people with vaccines on the scale and the speed that's been possible in the UK and elsewhere, and that's elicited quite understandably a lot of anger, never mind what people say to opinion pollsters in the UK. Across the EU, people are waiting for their vaccines impatiently. They see that where I'm now living in the US, UK, and Israel and other countries, vaccines are being rolled out much more rapidly. I hope they catch up. We all, because candidly, this COVID anywhere is COVID everywhere. So we all have an interest for everyone to get access to vaccines more rapidly. But clearly something's gone very badly wrong indeed in recent months in the EU.
And what might that be, though? Why, as you rightly say, you point to where you are, you point to where here in the UK. What's gone wrong within the EU?
I'm no specialist, but I suspect it's a combination of the government's not placing some very big bets on sort of pre-buying a whole bunch of, at that point at least, untested vaccines, as has been the case in the UK and the US. I think it's also just this age-old division of labour between the European Commission in Brussels, which was doing some of the negotiations, and the member states who were responsible for actually distributing them, and clearly something got lost in translation. I think it's a combination of all of those things.
So Nick Clegg speaking with me. Let's bring into the conversation former President of YouGov, political commentator, so expert pollster to comment on this poll, Peter Kellner, who joins me now. Okay, Peter, your interpretation of that, and any level of surprise from you. Good morning.
Good morning. Look, the Bloomberg figure for Remain defectors is at the top end of the range of pollsters. But let's look rather than just a single poll. What the pollsters agree on. They agreed in the last 3 months, after 5 years of pretty much stability, that very few Remainers or Leavers were changing their minds. There has now been a shift. Brexit is now more popular than it has been at any point since the 2016 referendum. And it's clear to me, and the Bloomberg poll and other pollsters show this, that the row of vaccines and the performance of the vaccines has been responsible for the shift.
Typically, from your experience, Peter, is this likely to grow? Will it stabilise? Will it diminish? And what would be the factors?
I don't know, Nick, and let me put in one qualification, is that even now, even after this shift, that other polling figures on other questions generally shift 10 or 20% when something dramatic happens. It has been a shift of a few percent, because there's always been a handful of people who switch from Remain to Leave, a handful of people who switch from Leave to Remain. So the increase is significant, it's real, it's important, but it's not as massive as I think might have been expected. I don't know where we'll go from here. I suspect what will happen over the next, maybe the next few weeks, the next few months and years, is that other issues to do with Brexit will come to dominate people's views of Brexit. It won't be dominated by the vaccine row as it is now.
Well, that was going to be my final point, actually. You've almost answered the question, because I was going to say, and all of us, Peter, all of us wish there had not been a coronavirus. But had there not been a coronavirus and the UK success story, and instead we were focusing on issues in Dover and issues on Northern Ireland, I wonder which way the numbers might have gone there.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, of course you don't. I'm only asking. Yeah.
But I think in the medium term, I think that there are two related distinct questions. Do people think Brexit is going well or badly? And that may change. And secondly, if they think it's going badly, who do they blame? Because what the opponents of Brexit need to do is achieve two things. Persuade people that Brexit is going badly, and secondly, it's the fault of Brexit, not the fault of Brussels.
Peter Woods is speaking with you. Thank you. Peter Kellner is individual commentator and was president of YouGov, the polling agency. Just to say again, this poll has been done for the Bloomberg news agency, in case you think it's something that's just been invented by some kind of pressure group, whatever it might be. Dr. Mike Goldsworthy is founder of Scientists for EU, Director of March for Change, and Secretary to the Parliament's All-Party Group on coronavirus. Your interpretation again of those figures, Dr. Goldsworthy. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, very similar to what Peter was saying there, that I've seen polling which shows a small shift, that there is a shift because we've been at verbal war, at least with the EU, about AstraZeneca, about supply of vaccines, and also because the EU had problems, not just in getting drugs from AstraZeneca, but on the nation-state levels of actually being able to roll them out. People have seen that contrast. So yeah, it has shifted the polls a bit, but as you both concluded at the end, there are certainly lots of other issues associated with Brexit, from small businesses to Northern Ireland, which will over time come into play as well. And people are politically always more resistant, almost infuriatingly resistant than people on the other side would like to see. So Remainers are still largely Remainers, and Leavers still Leavers, and there's people in the middle that can swing little bits here and there.
I've got to ask you personally, because you and I have debated the merits or otherwise of the European Union and Brexit for some time, and I'm even going to call you Mike. Mike, has the vaccines round changed your view of the European Union in any way, shape or form?
Yes.
To the negative, I imagine.
Yes, but not the EU construct per se, more Ursula von der Leyen, because I was impressed with Michel Barnier all the way through the negotiations. He was solid, he was task. He never put his foot in the bear trap of the UK press. He knew how to avoid that artfully, whereas with Ursula von der Leyen, and we had, for example, that Article 16 stuff, that was really off. And then the constant threats, but not doing anything, but threatening it, was just bad news. Now, I understand why the EU were frustrated. They'd signed a contract with AstraZeneca the day before the UK did, and then the UK one gazumped it and said it would be basically supplied to us first only. So I understand frustrations, but it's been pretty armless at a time of high tension. I will say this though, and that's one thing that makes you realise just what the EU means to smaller countries. They are looking at the row between the UK and the EU as a whole and thinking, my God, imagine if we didn't have a collective way of rolling it out, we'd still be waiting while Germany and Spain and Italy and France were doing contracts in the same kind of way that the UK and the US have been doing and hogging supply.
We'll leave it there. Doctor, thank you. Mike Goldsworthy, your founder scientist for the EU, Director of March for Change and Secretary of the Parliament's All-Party Group on coronavirus. So I share some numbers with you. I doubt that many of you believe in 1952 against 48. That was, of course, the majority in 2016 in the referendum. But as I have always said, I totally respect the position, but I also want to say, none of us are safe until we're all safe. So there's no point us sitting here chortling, hey, look at these figures we have about to share with you, when our friends in countries such as Ireland and France and Italy are faring so badly. But come on, this was the European Union's big moment. many people opposed the expansion of the European Union was seen to be its absolute pitfall here. Had it stayed as a rather tighter group of like-minded countries, in as much as I've always said, typically what you make in London, you're going to make in the same in Rome, you're going to probably make the same in Paris. It's not the same in Sofia and other cities, let's be honest about it. And that is the reality. The EU is too big and too unwieldy. If you don't believe me, listen to the scores on the doors, as it were. And I say again, we're not all safe until everyone is safe. But the share of people in each country who've received at least one vaccine dose. Now, this is of all ages. I stress of all ages, because of adults, United Kingdom is way over 50%. This is all age groups. The United Kingdom, as of April the 10th, so what was that, 2 days ago, 47.32%. 47.32% of all people in the United Kingdom. The best you get in Europe, Hungary at 30.02. The EU average, 15.34. 15%. Let's call it 50, let's round it up. 15.5. Place 47.5. In France, if you're just so you get an idea of it, in France, which hasn't fared particularly well, 15.79. In Ireland, 14.91. In Bulgaria, 6.61. The United Kingdom, 47.5. So come on, the time is right. Now you can ring and say, I was a Remainer, I was a fervent Remainer, but now I've seen the light. Britain was right to leave. And thanks to that, I probably saved Grandad's life. You know the number, 8:15, LBC News headline, Simon Conway.
The COVID vaccine rollout is expected to move to its next phase. Now all adults in the UK over the age of 50 have been offered a first dose. The NHS says the Moderna vaccine will be given to patients in England today for the first time. Defence giant Bangkok International is planning to cut 1,000 jobs in the UK and overseas. The weather mostly dry with sunny spells, but still chilly, a high of 12 degrees.
LBC travel line Joanne, where more delays continue northbound to the Blackwall Tunnel from the Sun in the Sands, and that's following an accident. In Charlton, there are delays on the Woolwich Road westbound, that's also after an accident. In Walshingham, the Baring Road stays closed both ways, that's following a burst water main. In Forest Hill, there are queues on the South Circular Road westbound because of the roadworks, and also because of works, there are delays on the A10 southbound from Chesham to the M25 junction. On the train, Southeastern services are now running between London Bridge and Charing Cross, but with delays of about half an hour.
This is LBC. If the thought of selling your car feels like, why not sell your car like a pro at motorway.co.uk? Motorway finds your best offer from a nationwide network of verified dealers. You can get up to £1,000 more than part exchange. Sell your car hassle-free without the drama. Go to motorway.co.uk and sell your car like a pro. Call Think Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973. This is LBC.
As we start getting back out there, capture long-awaited moments on the incredible iPhone 11 Pro. With its triple camera system and ultra-wide, you'll get the perfect pictures. And now at Vodafone, you can save £262 and get a huge 100 gigabytes of data for just £59 per month and £29 up front. Go online today. Together we can. Vodafone.
CPI plus 2.9% increase in change. Offer ends 27th of April. Minimum term agreement 25 gig road fee. Use credit check and terms apply. Saving info at vodafone.co.uk.
Players can love a present.
Oh yeah?
The Samsung Galaxy A52 5G. Look, it's got an awesome quad camera, a huge 6.5-inch infinity display, a battery that lasts for ages, and you can use 5G with it. It was easy on the wallet too.
I should have it instead.
Purchase the new Samsung Galaxy A52 5G. Awesome is for everyone. Search A52 5G to find out more.
It's a tricky time right now.
And it's more important than ever to keep looking after the physical and mental health of you and your family.
So make sure you get a bit of exercise every day.
Get outside.
Nick today, actually. I'm James, a couple of hours away. How lovely. Oh, how exciting. Good man. I hope it goes well. What do you think? Do you think some Remainers are now perhaps more Brexiteers than they were?
No, I mean, this is the final nail in the coffin of any bemoaning, surely. You know, when you look at how the EU has failed in rolling out the you know, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, of course, perhaps this is the richest countries that are going to grab it for themselves. So the system's not quite up to date.
Oh dear, that's... Well, you know, you're meant to ring what's the number, everybody? 119. I don't know if you have if you're able to do that. No, I'm sure they will resolve the issue for you on 119. Give it a little okay. Well, I mean, that's what I'm told. So I'm very lucky. Well, I'm quite a bit older than you. I don't know if that's or not, but mine was done. So if you have... But let us know if you don't get any airplanes. Thank you for that. Same subject, Joanna. John, you're on the radio. What do you want to say? Good morning. It's around 20 pro-EU or Remain voters said they would now vote Brexit. 20%. Why are you surprised by that?
In comparison to all the other things which perhaps are being reported quite strongly in the media as things that are going wrong as a result of Brexit, well, what we've got to remember is that there are this huge strategy
What looks better to you?
Well, I think it entirely depends on the strategy. Given that we've got the 12-week gap, given that we're taking a 12-week gap, it's logical that we're going to have given far more first vaccine